Hey everybody, welcome back. I am Tiffany with Voices for Independence, Fitness and Activities, and I am here continuing our series on cooking across America. We're getting near the end of our travels here. We have a handful of states left to touch, but today we are headed to the New England area again. We are going to be stopping in New Hampshire. New Hampshire being in the northeast area of the United States. It is definitely a Monday on a Tuesday for me. With New Hampshire being in the upper northeast area of the United States, it has ideal weather for the apples to grow and for apple orchards to be splendid and ample this time of year because it has the warm summers but the cool weather of the fall that always starts early in that area. So today what I'm going to be sharing with you is a recipe for a very simple apple crisp. Now this one's a little bit different. They like to do things a little bit different in New Hampshire. The traditional apple crisp in New Hampshire actually had a shortbread crust that they put on the bottom of the pan before they bake the apples. So I will go over that with you today. That part of the recipe I had to do beforehand, and then we'll do the rest of the steps here together. So for this recipe, what you'll need for the shortbread is you'll need a half a cup of butter, which is 1 stick of butter, and then we're gonna have a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and a half a teaspoon of vanilla, and a 1 1/4 cup of flour. We are gonna blend those together with our hand mixer, and they'll turn into a wonderful crumb crust that will be our shortbread crust. I'll show you what it looks like. You're gonna bake it in the oven at 350 degrees for approximately 12 to 14 minutes. All right, we're gonna pull it out. It's still quite warm. It will be going back in the oven, but that had to bake a little longer than the apples that we'll be placing on top. So we're going to prepare that part of the recipe next. So what you're going to want to do is take your apples. Now, Cortland's and Macintosh are the most popular apples that come out of New Hampshire, and they're great for making apple desserts. New Hampshire is also known for lots of other things apple. They make a wonderful apple wine, apple whiskey, and they're really into their apple fritters as well. Apple crisp, although, is the most popular and has been across the United States a traditional dessert or treat to make this time of year as well as we're entering into fall. So not a more perfect time to be stopping while we cook across America in New Hampshire with the apples. So for the apples, what you're going to want to do is peel and core your apples, which I have peeled the majority of mine. I have this wonderful apple core. It's a great little household appliance utensil that works wonderful for coring our apples. All you have to do is once you peeled your apple, or if you want to leave the peels on, you can do that as well. We are going to use the hollow end pushed down through the middle of our apple. And then all you do is take the other part, which is like a plunger, and it'll push it through. And as you can see, the core will come right out. It's a great little tool. It saves a lot of time, and it allows you to use the majority of the apple, and you don't waste a lot cutting it away from the core. So let me core 1 or 2 more here as we're preparing to slice these. Now these apples will be sliced, not diced. We're gonna then lay them in the pan on top of our shortbread crust in a orderly fashion. Lots of people like to take, as you can see, they pop right out. Lots of people like to take their time and lay their apple slices down in a pattern as well to add more interest to their dessert when they go to present it to their guests. All right, we have 1 more apple to core here. Get that right through, get the core out. Woo. Let's see. This is also a great utensil. I've showed you guys this before. It's a nice handheld manual apple peeler. It's really helpful when you need it. It's one of those things I have and it stays up in the cupboard the majority of the year, but when I need it, it comes in super handy. So I always keep it. I've had it for many years now. I think I got it as a Christmas gift in college. So that was a long time ago, folks. All right, so now we're gonna slice our apples. So simply you can slice them down the center, and then we'll take each half and thinly slice it into nice sized pieces. And this is going to be laying on top of our shortbread crust that we already baked this morning in preparation for our apple crisp. So we're gonna make about 4 cups of sliced apples. So we'll slice these up rather quickly. And we'll get our measuring cup out here so we can measure it as we go. It's a 2-cup measurer, so if we fill it up twice, we'll have our 4 cups of apple slices that we'll then be putting on top of our shortbread. This is gonna go back into a 350-degree oven, and we are gonna bake it for an additional 35 minutes. There will also be a crumb topping, as all delicious, a classic apple crisp need that delicious sugary crumb topping that tastes so good on top of the dessert. All right, so we have our 2 cups here. I'm gonna finish slicing some more, and then we'll finish the last 2 apples as we start placing them on top of our crust that we baked in the oven earlier. So you can just lay them out, make sure you're separating them. And, oh, I had a seed that didn't come out with the core. We'll get that out. And we're gonna lay these out in rows, and they can overlap a little bit. And it's gonna be pretty high because they want this to have lots of apples in it. So we are gonna keep placing them out. Again, it's one of those wonderful things when it starts to, it was chilly here in Erie, Pennsylvania yesterday and very dreary. It was pretty gloomy, it rained, and it was quite breezy. It felt really nice, although I do love summer. It was a nice change for a moment, but as we come into the fall, people love to start thinking about recipes like this. All right, so we're gonna keep going here. We have 2 more apples to put on top. This takes a lot of apples actually. So you're gonna have more than 1 layer of apples in your apple crisp. They want this jam-packed full, and we're only using an 8 by 8 inch pan. It's a smaller pan, but full of delicious sweet apples. All right, so I will finish my apple slicing in a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make the crumb topping for this lovely dessert before we pop it back in the oven. So I'm going to set that aside for now, and then we are going to gather our ingredients that we need for our crisp topping, which will be, you're going to want 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And then we're going to use a 1/4 cup of granulated white sugar, and then 3/4 cup of flour and some cinnamon and 6 tablespoons of butter. Now you want your butter, you can take it right out of the fridge for this recipe if you want. You don't want it to be too soft because you want it to be able to crumble nicely. And the colder the butter, the easier it is to crumble because it won't mix in to your ingredients and get too smooth, which typically we want our butter to be soft enough to be able to incorporate it into our ingredients, but we just want this to be roughly incorporated. So we are going to add our 1/4 cup of white sugar, and then our 1/4 cup of brown sugar, making sure I have my measurements right for you here. Again, I'm using a coconut sugar for my brown sugar. It's the same consistency and texture of a traditional brown sugar. Brown sugar is just regular white sugar with molasses in it. So this has coconuts. It's made from coconut, so it's a little bit sweeter. We're going to add that right in. And then we are going to add our 2 tablespoons of flour. I believe that's all we're adding to this. I apologize, it's 6 tablespoons of flour. And then we're going to use a pastry cutter to mix this in. Again, if you don't have that, you can use a fork or 2 knives. And again, we're not mixing to incorporate all the ingredients, we're just mixing to create crumbs. So let me get my pastry cutter out. You've been using this a lot lately too. It's another handy utensil that is great for when you're doing doughs and anything pastry related. So basically we just cut up the butter into the sugar and flour, And you want to just make sure the sugar and flour is all mixed together well. And we're going to mash this down until we get a crumb coating that we can sprinkle on top of our apples. And then, like I said, this is going to go back in our 350-degree oven, and we're going to bake it for 45 more minutes, 35 to 45, depending on your oven and how crisp you want your top to be. So you just work at it until the butter is into smaller pieces that look more like crumbs. And again, you don't want this to turn into a dough or a batter. That's why we needed our butter cold for this part of the recipe. And there you go. It just crumbles right up, and we're going to take this delicious crumb topping, sprinkle it right on top of our apple crisp. As soon as I finish adding the last few apples that need to go into this recipe, and I'm going to pop it back in the oven. I will be sharing this recipe in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it as we're cooking across America, and we stopped in New Hampshire. Thanks, guys, for joining me today. See you soon.